against the mainstream in defense of Hasan. So Hasan is a popular streamer. I've heard that he's a fellow communist, but I'm not really sure if that's true. But he recently got in hot water because his dog, he shocked his dog on stream, basically, for moving out of position. And I'm going to explain what's going on. So, what Hasan does is the dog moves off the place caught. He shocks the dog, and then the dog yelps, and then the dog re-goes on the place caught. So, in my opinion, Hasan didn't do anything wrong, assuming a variety of factors. What people don't understand is, in order for a dog to respond appropriately when you shock them, when you use the shock collar, the dog has to clearly understand how to escape and how to avoid it. And the dog clearly understood, judging by the fact that the dog moved back on the place bed after it was shocked. And unless you really know what you're doing and your timing is really good, generally speaking, there has to be a conditioning phase where you use the shock collar on, we call it a tickling phase, where you're basically annoying the dog into compliance. So, once through repetition, well, firstly, you have to teach the place command, which has to be done through positive reinforcement, so food, toys, praise, whatever. Then once the dog clearly understands the place command, you integrate the shock collar. And you can do this through a variety of ways. You can do this through backwards conditioning, hitting the shock on mildly annoying levels. People don't understand that shock collars can actually be used in a very nuanced way. You don't always have to fry the dog. It can be ranging from very mild to excruciating, to anything in between. So, once you've tickled the dog to basically teach them how to escape the shock collar, then you go through an avoidance phase. This is when you put the dog in command, and if the dog intentionally blows off the command, you hit the shock at an aversive level. And assuming Hasan has done that, assuming he's done the conditioning work, and assuming he's taught the place command through positive reinforcement, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Just for example, take for example me. I had my dog off leash in a forest, and she was running around having the time of her life. She saw a deer and she took off. I recalled her. She gave me the middle finger. I cranked up the shock collar to like 50 or 60 out of 100, and she goes, "Aye." And then she turns around and then runs back to me. Okay? There is nothing wrong with that. Assuming the dog clearly understands the command and clearly understands the correction, how to escape and how to avoid it, there is nothing wrong with correcting a dog for non-compliance. So, assuming that Hasan did all this work, which I'm sure, judging by the fact that the dog did respond appropriately in response to being shocked, then he did nothing wrong. And I very much disagree with the animal rights lobby when they believe that everything should just be treats and lollipops and candy canes and rainbows. And I personally, now, do I use the place command personally? I will very occasionally. I will use the place command when I'm eating or something to prevent my dog from being all over my kitchen. And also when guests come over, I'll use it sometimes. But I personally don't use the place command. And I and to be fair, we might not know why he's using the place command. He could be using it to stop his dog from, say, if he has a cat, let's say the dog has very high prey drive, he could be using the place command to prevent the dog from accessing the cat and potentially grabbing it and shaking it to death. Right? Um, there are a myriad of reasons why one would want to use the place command. So, yeah, I overall, assuming Hasan understands the basics of classical conditioning and understands the basics of dog training, I don't think Hasan did anything wrong, and that's just my opinion.